What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Omnic Lab. Hopefully, I'm not too quiet, too loud. We're testing a new apartment. It's going to be a little bit more echoey for me. My name's Rob. For those of you who have not been here, this is episode 160. I'm joining you fresh from a new apartment in Japan, and joining me as always on a very nice last day of July, nice and spicy in the south of Atlanta. We've got your one and only Andres Gomez. What's up, dude?
Hello, hello. Good to have you back. It is hot and spicy over here, although we've had a very mild summer in Georgia this year. I will say it's been very nice, but it also concerns me. Is it like, why is it not as hot as it normally is?
I don't know, man. It's humid and super hot. I think it was like 35 degrees Celsius or 36 degrees Celsius today, which is like somewhere in the 90s, I believe. But
Yeah.
it's freaking hot.
Whew.
So, needless to say, I basically my entire house has been in boxes for like 2 days, and long story, but we basically got everything set up.
Yeah, how's the
At
move going?
least to
Because
do
you've been
this.
you've been like off the charts because of your move.
It's been exhausting to say the least, and I don't want to get too bogged down with those of you who don't care, but like you can see this thing behind me, I literally moved this and my entire desk space and all of the podcasting equipment just got set up today. So within the last like 6 hours, actually within the last 4 hours, I had this stuff set up. And Carrie and I have been kind of sweeping and throwing away garbage. Like our balcony has like 8 to 9 bags of garbage just because previous residents plus stuff that we're trying to move around.
Oh no, I
And
feel
it's been really
you.
hard to sleep, so we had to order some blackout curtains today, and it was just it's a mess. Like,
Yeah,
but my first day
moving
of
it's such
new
a
work,
pain.
new job, new bosses tomorrow. No new classes yet because school's still in summer vacation for another week or two, and then I'll be going back. But we got some more organizational transition stuff. But I'm happy to talk about Overwatch and start playing soon because I'm getting real sick of like sitting around and cleaning and moving boxes and just like I need to throw this away and there's no room. But yeah, so what are we talking about today, guys? Well, this week we're going to be talking some more. I hope it's not too annoying for 222, but it is the topic of discussion, the hot button issue that everyone's talking about. So I don't want to kind of hit it as a problematic. Today we're going to be talking specifically with regards to the 222 meta, with how the pro circuit has kind of evolved a bit and adjusted in this transitionary period, even over just like a week of games. We've seen a lot of iteration with a lot of different teams with different strengths, and also teams with different strengths in different map pools interacting with the 2-2 meta before Sigma was released. And also, I believe they have kind of a wonky patch that they've been playing on too, right? They haven't gotten the entire swath of the meta changes into that. So that's even going to further iterate on next year's Overwatch patch and maybe even the finals. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a really interesting point where 222 has come to Overwatch League and 222 is coming to the ladder. We don't have it on the live servers right now, but I feel like a lot of people have been playing on the PTR, myself included, and a lot of my friends as well. And we've been experimenting on how things look like over there. And even though we had some speculations on how the meta was going to go, it's definitely much more open than we initially thought. And a lot of heroes that we didn't anticipate becoming popular have actually become really popular. Now, to be fair, like Rob said, we are in a very funky patch in Overwatch League
Mm-hmm.
right now where they're playing on 222, but they're playing with the old balance, right? They're playing with the
Old
balance.
Brig.
Old Brig is the main example. Then there's a few other changes and Sigma being added on the PTR, but
It's old Rissa too.
yeah, the Old Orisa and Old Brig are probably like the two biggest ones. So
Yeah.
even there, though, where you would think, well, the Old Brig isn't very good in 222. Even Jeff Kaplan admitted that in his release, right? He was like, we are going to rework Brig because she doesn't fit the bill anymore. But we're still seeing her in Overwatch League. Sometimes she get brought out as the second healer. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Some of those unexpected symptoms that we've been seeing, and then what heroes are in the best spots right now.
Exactly. So before we really get rolling here, let's go through a few announcements. The first and foremost is that game night for the month of August is going to be on the 30th. Last month's was actually quite good, and I was excited because my internet didn't get swept out from under me. We had a little bit of translation issues, so I actually did get to play in game night for a couple games, and that was a lot of fun, despite being under pressure of moving. And we want to remind you guys that we are doing Patreon coaching sessions, and we are really enjoying them. And just another thing on the docket, you got to sign up for Patreon at the $2.50 level per episode, or the platinum level if you're just looking for like the graphics on the page. That's the coaching level, so you get a one coaching session per account that you do this. I've had some, and I say that because some people have been doing some questioning with regards to group coaching, or like brother cousin type thing, or sister, that type of deal. If you want to do that, that's okay, but it is only for that 1 hour block, and it is only for that one, that one player's video perspective, if that makes sense. If you fit it in the hour, that's fine, but if you want to double up on that, um there's no fear. You can only get the slots for as many of the Patreon slots that you have. We're pretty flexible on that. We understand that we're all about you guys learning, and if you want to kind of game the system a bit to get that edge, we're all about it, right? So please sign up for Patreon. And also, if you already are signed up and are one of our regulars, we do encourage you to become a become a pupil of both of the podcast hosts at some point, whether it be for a different hero or whether it be for the same hero. That's up to you. And even if, especially if you want to get like a lower tank main player like me, and then have Anders take a look at it, we do see and emphasize different points based off of our play styles, as well as what we understand about Overwatch. And it's not just the difference in rank per se. So we may be just giving you a different angle on certain things, and that's always helpful, as well as different coaching styles and helping us both improve as well as you. That's what we're all about here. Anders, any other notes there before we move on?
No, I just wrapped out wrapped up my last coaching sessions for the month this weekend and yesterday. We did about 4 of them with different patrons, and they went really well. We had a really good time with them. Some of them are recurring patrons, so one of them has already been with me for 3 months. So this is the third coaching session. He really likes it. He's looking forward for the next month. So if you guys, if this is something that you're looking for and you're looking to improve and have somebody else gonna help you with it, this is a great place to do it. In fact, I've noticed that a lot of the people who have been coming to these coaching sessions do a lot of this stuff just in general. Like, being with us and being the coaching session is just one of the things that they do to improve, which makes me really happy that they're putting so much effort. Some of our trainees are really into it, and they've progressed so much. I have 2 of them that started at low bronze, and now they're pushing diamond at this point. So some of them have improved a lot and really fast, and it's really cool seeing that progression. So hopefully we can keep doing it with more of you guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see some of the guys that I've been coaching like continue building good habits, and also including their friends to help them out. They're like, "Hey, I want to see if I can get our 2 stack into a 3 stack, but my friend is a little bit lower. Do you mind if they take our coaching session?" I was like, "Absolutely, let's do it together. Maybe you guys can learn together and you can coach each other." It's really, really
Yeah,
good system.
that has happened too. A lot of people have asked me like, "Hey, is it okay if I invite my duo partner? This is the guy that I normally play with." And absolutely, if that is how you normally play and that's your comfort zone, and maybe like I have a guy that's a DPS guy and he always queues up with his Reinhardt buddy, right? And that way
Hmm.
that way he can guarantee that he'll have a tank.
Right.
So that is totally fair. The coaching session is only for one person, but like I said, it's no problem if you guys want to go do it with your partner while I coach you, and then we can coach you in that environment where you're playing in your comfort zone.
Now, if we get to group calls where it's like 5, 6 players, then we have a problem. But 1 or 2,
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
That's
No,
manageable.
no, no group calls. Usually, I just
No,
still
no Google Hangouts that were planned.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll still be in the call with just the one person, the trainee, and then they'll just communicate through like in-game voice with the people that they're with. So
Yeah,
that's usually how
absolutely.
we've made it work in the past.
And we do accept VODs as well as live coaching. And we prefer the live coaching, but obviously for the console players, it's a little bit harder to accomplish. So moving forward, we also have the Top Score Solutions friends at topscoresolutions.com. If you're developing businesses, apps, services, organizational content around esports, please give them a ring. Check out their online community and their Discord. You can get a link to that on their website. You can also ping Ben or I Need Peeling on our Discord and get linked to his Discord, as well as like any of their business oriented and esports oriented podcast that they have. Please go check them out. They're great friends of the show for a long, long time, and they've just been tremendous big helps to us. And we would love to send you over there if you had any questions with them. And last, but certainly not least, and also kind of a big feature of our podcast today is omnicmeta.com, because they have a new page called omnicmeta.com/owl/meta. And we'll be using these statistics on today's episode. With regards to how we're inferring a few things with regards to the pick rates and maybe what we think that maybe the reason behind why these heroes are getting picked and maybe why they're not getting picked, and maybe some things that we could see in trends as the new updates go live into the finals. We have no confirmation that the next patch will go to finals, but there is a possibility, and so we would love to discuss that, at least for you guys, as a possibility for what's coming next your way when this hits the beta. So moving forward, we also want to say a big thank you to Shaz for giving us 1,000 bits in chat. If you guys want to do that, we're at twitch.tv/OmnicLab for our live recordings. If you can catch us.
I just want to really emphasize that this is a really cool article. If you guys are interested in any of the numbers that we're using for today's episode, make sure you go to omnicmeta.com. You can do /owl/meta, and you'll see a really cool breakdown of how much each hero is getting used in Overwatch League right now. You can break it down per map, so you can only see Assault, Control, or Escort, or you can see an overall to see all of the map pools combined and see which heroes are getting played the most. He breaks it down on the current amount that the hero is getting played, the previous week's amount that the hero got played, and what's kind of like the overall change that has happened there. You can really see some of the heroes that you were not expecting, and some of them have had a huge increase in usage. Do you want to go through some of these, Rob? And we can talk about them?
Yes, I would like to talk about some of the biggest deviations in this week versus last week first, if we could, because I feel like that is a huge number for some of these heroes. So if you look at just the overall, it doesn't really show up amongst a lot of the heroes, but you can see a couple of them being a bit more indicative, and that would be heroes such as Lucio and Sombra are there alongside of Brigitte, Pharah, Zarya, and Reinhardt. And if you can remember any of those names, especially the last three, Brigitte, Zarya, and Reinhardt, alongside of Sombra, all of these heroes have been the top of the list for the previous meta. And every single one of them has taken a at least 25% pick rate hit each.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are in the upper echelon around 30 to 35% points. And Brigitte down at nearly 60% overall. This is a massive change.
Yeah, it's a massive change. And I mean, this patch is the death of goats, basically. It was their
More or
death
less.
sentence. Not even based on nerfs, right? Just based on the available positions that you can play. Yeah, you actually cannot physically choose goats anymore. So a lot of these heroes have really fallen off the face of the earth. Reinhardt, for example, I think it's in the worst spot in pick rate in Overwatch League than it's ever been. Down from a 30% pick rate to a 0.9% pick rate. So it doesn't even get picked 1% of the time. This is basically no Reinhardt in Overwatch League right now. Maybe he got picked once and he got swapped real
He's in
quick
like the
after
bottom
that.
10 on every map right now.
Reinhardt has definitely suffered a lot from this change. Orisa has become the clear victor. She is the hero that has been played the most out of all of the heroes. Up from a 26.1% pick rate to a whooping 65.5. She is in almost almost half of the matches, right? Or more. The only times that she doesn't pick is in very specific maps, and even then, sometimes she still does get picked.
Now, I don't really want to. I want to like talk about the tanks in particular with the transition point on Orisa and Reinhardt because it's a really good place to park for a bit. Because if you're looking at this too, Roadhog also got about a 25% uptick because of the Orisa. I would venture to say because of Orisa and
Yeah,
because
it's a
it's
fair statement.
the like one of the best heroes on at least some of the map types in particular in this map pool where Orisa shines the most alongside, if that makes sense. And then you're going to see almost 1% increase for Wrecking Ball as well because of he wasn't really widely used, and in the fringe cases where he was useful, he was still really useful. So he's kind of in the same spot. And then you see Winston taking a little bit of a dip because of again the goats metas that favored more verticality, where you would swap out the Reinhardt for him. That doesn't really exist anymore. And then Orisa's kind of taking that same location on the meta picks. And of course, the Reinhardt dip. But there's another thing at play here, which is the patch change that we didn't get to see. Reinhardt does have that knockback reduction, and that is not something to be overlooked because currently in Overwatch League, he doesn't have any of that knockback reduction from the patch. And so when you go to a 2-2-2 and you don't have this balance change in place to kind of help Reinhardt get to be a little bit more important, to be a little more resilient in the setup, he doesn't really have those kind of tools anymore. So even Blizzard recognized that this is the direction that they wanted him to go into, but right now in the Overwatch League context, it's not there yet. So
Yeah,
you're
right
not going to see
now
them taking advantage of him yet.
in Overwatch League, life is hard for Reinhardt. It's not easy to play him, especially against the compositions that are getting played. And to be fair, this change is not really surprising anyone over here. I think that everyone was already speculating, oh, Bunker is going to be the new hotness. Orisa and Roadhog are probably going to get played a lot. And it goes to follow that if Orisa Roadhog become the go-to main tank and off tank, that the previous ones, Reinhardt and Zarya, are going to be very unfavored, right? And that's what we're seeing. Reinhardt and Zarya are getting almost no pick rates in Overwatch League right now. I think that you still see it on the PTR, on live regions. A lot of people do play the Ryan Zarya still, but I still think that they're in a very weak spot. And if you're going up against a team that has a really strong Roadhog or Rissa, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage versus the Ryan Zarya, I think. Not that you can't pull it
Yeah.
off. If you're a really good duo and your team is working with you, get good positioning, good pathing, and the Orisa Roadhog are not really on it really well, I think that you can still, pull it out, but I don't know. It's swim against the current there.
Something else that's actually at play here is the Orisa changes didn't go through that nerfed her. So she's also even further separated by that power disruption because she has that extra second where she has to, refresh her barrier, which is borderline oppressive in this, but we're not really sure yet. It could even get nerfed again, as far as I'm concerned, and probably still be just as useful
Yeah, I
because
think
she's
that
really strong.
that balance patch will probably bring him just a little bit closer together.
Right.
But I think that Orisa will still be kind of like the go-to. Now, the Orisa of Roadhog is not only causing Zarya and Reinhardt to go away, like you just mentioned, but I've noticed another hero has crept up over here and this one caught a lot of people by surprise. But when you look at the meta, it makes a ton of sense why it's here. And we're talking about Mei. Mei started at a 4.2% pick rate for the league and is now at a 40.2. So by a factor of 10 times has the Mei pick rate increase. This is probably the most Mei we've ever seen played in Overwatch League ever.
It's also the second biggest increase overall of uptick.
Yeah, of pick rate. So the Orisa Roadhog inadvertently making Mei really good. And I blame this on a couple things. I know that a lot of people are like, why is Mei so popular? Please take her away. I personally don't mind it because the role that Mei plays in this composition or in this meta is actually very skillful and is very team oriented. This is in part, I think, because of Clockwork Vendetta and how they've shown that Mei can be used, and a lot of people adopting this, and that playstyle finally making it to the league. And now
Right.
that the meta has changed, like this hero is like ripe for the taking. Her Mei wall just fits so nicely against the halt hook combo, and is one of the main
Mhm.
ways that some of these teams have been stopping almost an unstoppable combo. Right, that combo is
Yeah.
so reliable that you can't just rely on your position to avoid it. In fact, you'll get caught at one point or another. The halt hook combo is gonna come, especially if they're professional players pulling it off. So the May is just coming in clutch over here. Have you had a chance to see some of the May
I've
gameplay
actually
this
been
week?
playing Mei because I really like playing her. She's one of the few heroes that I feel really well accumulated to as a kind of more of a projectile DPS type of player. Um, and the main thing that I loved about Mei is that it's kind of sounds weird, but she's really flexible. Does that make
She
sense?
is.
Like in this composition, she doesn't have any fall off damage. She can legitimately go toe to toe sniping Widow duels and burning cooldowns and weaving barriers to actually deal with her. Furthermore, if you're really good at projectiles at this top level, whether you're a projectile or hit scan doesn't really matter when you're trying to contest a Pharah. They can do anything at this level. Like it's annoying, sure, and a little bit more skillful, but these guys can snipe anyone. And another thing that's interesting is in the mirror match. So in a situation where Mei is presented with another comp that's also using Mei and Marissa and Roadhog, Roadhog is really hard to deal with. And when you have Ana in the mix to purple him or deny him the heal, Mei also has a further effect of denial where if he's using his, his little his healing vape, as we call it, you can kind of freeze him midway through the heal, or you can freeze him before he can heal and kill him where he doesn't have any damage mitigation and also simultaneous healing. And it's really helpful, along with what Andres mentioned with the hog hook with the halt combo with Orisa. You can just put a wall up behind him and they have no way of getting out. There's no way of healing him. There's no way to protect him. Whoever you're hooked, like Mei's got so many different synergies that you can perform with this composition.
Yeah,
Lots of
and
lockdown.
some of these players have gotten good at reading, the battle. Just kind of like how Goats was revolving around cooldowns already, and players were really
Hmm.
good at playing around those cooldowns. The new bunker comp is sort of the same, right? They always revolving
Yeah.
around that halt hook, and the Mei has to be on it. The second that she sees the halt come out, she will usually just put a wall right in front of her, which will either stop the hook in its tracks, or if the hook does get somebody in the halt, the target will get stuck in the wall as he's trying to pull it back, and they won't be
Yeah.
able to shoot at them. So you do have to be on it. It's not as easy as it sounds. If you don't play Mei often and you're not used to putting the wall up really quick and reacting to things real quick with it, you will probably mess it up. It does require a little bit of practice, so make sure that if you're trying to attempt this, you at least get a little bit of a warm up in there before you try
Hmm.
it. But that being said, Mei brings a ton of other stuff to this composition. Like you said, against the Roadhog, it's not uncommon to see the Mei freeze him 2 or 3 times in a fight, and it makes the Roadhog rather unusable a little bit because now his hook is not getting any value, right? If he pushes forward and tries to push your Orisa, you're freezing him all the time. And Roadhog has no shield, he has no mobility, no verticality, he can't displace himself real fast. So he's super vulnerable to the freeze itself. And Mei is not the easiest target to get with your hook already, right? Like she has a ton of tools to kind of dodge you. She's already going to be playing behind the Orisa shield, so she's not the easiest one. Even if you halt her, she can just ice block, and you can't really hook her either, right? So I think she's in the one of the most resilient spots versus this composition, and her ultimate fits so well against it too. You're going up against Roadhog and Orisa, which are usually taking no speed boost with him because Lucio, like you said before, has fallen a little bit out of favor. This composition doesn't
That's right.
rely on moving really fast, right? They're just taking ground in stages based on the Orisa shield cooldown. So
Correct.
when you throw that Mayhold, when they try to commit to the point and you throw that Mayhold in there, there's not a lot of ways that they can get out of it. So they're also very vulnerable to this.
And keep in mind, the higher you get up in skill levels with utilizing Mei, the more the freeze effect is less like important, and even so the slow becomes even more beneficial, because slowing people down at higher levels where your reactions are much faster, the game pace is increasing, everyone can hit really really big hard to hit shots nicer, like more fluid and easier. When you're making everyone else on your job, on your team's job, to shoot somebody easier by slowing somebody down, the game pace just exponentially grows in that situation. And then on top of that, maze freeze and slow concurrently when you're trying to take someone's space or they're trying to encroach into your space is really really tough to deal with without a Lucio, and b, when you're using that, I don't know if this is something that maybe like mid to low level players don't really understand about May. With one of the last couple sorry, I just smacked my mic. With one of the last couple changes that they did to May's endothermic blaster, it actually will penetrate heroes but not barriers. So you can freeze multiple targets by kind of doing the spray and pray technique and going through one target to the next, and kind of hitting a bunch of people with a slow at the same time is really really disorienting in a lot of ways for the enemy team and
Yeah.
super helpful for you.
Yeah, just in general, May is like looking really good right now. It does require some skill though. Like, go check out some of the Overwatch League. I recommend Nero from the Hangzhou Charge. He actually is doing a fantastic job showing how to properly use Mei in this meta. So go check out some of his games, especially against Fusion. He basically destroyed Fusion. Him and Happy did a fantastic job. So 101 Mei play right there.
I think a lot of people are going to see a big uptick in Jardia's streams recently just
Oh
because of the May
yeah.
changes.
Oh man, I bet
So go
he's
show him
loving
some
this,
love if you
dude.
want to go check it out.
Finally his meta is here.
Yeah. The next thing here, let's jump into is supports. And this is an interesting one that I wanted to pick Andres' brain on. So Ana previously was 56% pick rate and now is 55. So with a negative 1% adjustment, which is virtually nothing, with one of the meta heroes from meta to meta to meta, what are we why is this such a powerful hero? And why is this something that we're seeing as a staying power within the 222 lock?
Yeah, the support heroes are actually an interesting bunch over here cuz to be honest, most of them are rather untouched in their pick rates except for two of them, Lucio and Brigitte. Lucio and Brigitte were the carry supports for the GOATS meta. They were incredibly well, or they worked incredibly well within those constraints, right? The AoE healing, the speed boost, having the extra stun, and like that really tanky support, they fit so well. But now we don't need those anymore, right? We don't have Reinhardt and we don't have Zarya. So those two have kind of fallen out of favor because Orisa doesn't need the speed boost that much. Like, you would think that she would like the speed boost, but her playstyle is very like hold the position, right? Not like unlike Reinhardt that tries to be pushing the front line forward so he can close the gap and start swinging his hammer. Orisa doesn't have to do that, right? She has a ton of range. She just picks up a position that she likes and just fires at everyone. So the speed boost becomes really rather unnecessary for her. You'd rather just have heroes that can pump a ton of healing into her from her position, right? And Anna is in a great place for that. She loves hanging out in the bunker, being hard to hit,
Even out of the bunker.
or even out of the bunker, shooting into the bunker. Um,
Mm.
so I think that there's almost no significant loss in play rate for Anna. Uh,
And her
Mercy's also
value in the
looking really
mirror
good.
match against the Roadhogs, again, like we mentioned before, is just
Right. She gets
super
a
helpful
ton of
because you just
value
deny the Roadhog out.
against Roadhog. Absolutely. And also it gives you some range as well that you can fight
Right.
like you want to from your position.
So when we look at Ana here in particular, like you kind of want to do what Andres did, where you're kind of looking at like the reasons why other heroes are taking a hit and others are kind of staying the same. It's kind of just because all of the other heroes kind of stay in the same realm of considerations. But this is like, I want to say this is the first, maybe the second time that we've seen Overwatch since the inception of the game where Lucio hasn't been a part of the number one pick rate pro meta, if that makes sense. Like, even from the outside of the game and into dive meta, into the beginning of when Ana was even released, Lucio was always a part of that equation because getting speed and getting the ability to move fast in Overwatch has always just been this perpetual nightmare that other heroes can't give you. And Lucio's the only one that can give you speed. And this is the first time where kind of sticking in one spot and not really having the ability to have more healing because you can't choose a third healer, um, kind of is the straw that broke the Lucio's back. You know what I mean? Like, this is the first time that you don't really need it because you can't stack it.
In certain places. Now, it is
Yeah.
worth mentioning that the biggest loser for the support category is definitely Brigitte. She was at a 57.6% pick rate. So huge pick rate down to 7.6. So now she is barely getting picked, even though in some cases she did get brought out.
Right.
Lucio, on the other hand, he had a massive drop in pick rate from a 65.6, but he didn't fall off the face of the earth, right? He fell down to a 32.2% pick rate. So even though he doesn't pick as much, he still has some uses. His boop is very powerful, and on maps where you can, be the boop master like Ilios well, for example, I think that he still fits the bill, right? You still
Yeah.
bring a Lucio to help you. And if you're running a
Yeah.
composition that's a little bit more mobile, like with Hammond or anything like that, sometimes the Lucio is nice because he can actually, get into the middle of the fray and do some damage without being too scared, right? Unlike Zenyatta.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because basically, if you look at the breakdown of maps, in particular with the type of map, Lucio and Wrecking Ball see their largest uptick in the control map type because that's where they shine the most. There's the most things that you can do. There's usually the most environmental help that you get from Lucio's. Rotating on a dime in those type of maps where they're really congested is very, very, very valuable. And then you also have the realm of verticality, which a lot of the other supports don't have access to. So that's something that's really big consideration, as well as why Sombra is also picked in those maps because it is congested. She can get a lot more value from her EMPs, a bit more in those situations, and then also in assaults. But you see her dip a bit more on the escort maps a lot. She took a big hit in escort map pick rate. And in her assault pick rate, she's not as valuable, so she's still just kind of a consideration. That kind of shows me that like her taking a hit in the assault maps is more to kind of look at what specific maps is she good at and kind of trying to fit her in there, as well as what teams really can utilize Sombra really well. Furthermore, I'd also like to comment back on the Brigitte thing. A lot of this is likely because of the patch didn't shift to help her change her playstyle into something that's more conducive into this environment. Is she still useful? Absolutely. Is she as useful? Maybe not to what the teams are trying to accomplish, or maybe not to the playstyles that they're trying to accomplish in these particular maps. There's even a world where you could even just say that maybe the one map or the two maps that she's super good in this specific scenario just happens to be out of the map pool right now because they don't play all the maps right now. So that's something that we definitely should consider with a lot of this.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit about some of the DPS because there has been actually a pretty cool mix up on the DPS as well. Just like we saw a big mix up with tanks and healers, some DPS that haven't seen the light of day for a while are actually kind of coming back a little bit. Not only Mei, I think Mei is the biggest showcase, like, whoa, where did Mei come from kind of thing. But some of these other heroes are definitely making an appearance. I'm talking about McCree, Genji, Reaper, and Tracer. All those four
And Hanzo.
heroes, and I'll talk about Hanzo and Widow a little bit separately, but I want to mention these four specifically right now. Because these heroes were in obscurity, like nobody even remembered they were in the roster sometimes, especially poor little Genji. McCree had a 0.2 pick rate. Genji had a 1.1 pick rate.
0.2.
Reaper had a 1.9 pick rate. and Tracer was faring the best of all with a measly 3.4% pick rate. Now all of them are above 10% pick rate, which actually it's a pretty decent amount.
1 in 10 matches, man. That's a
1 in 10
good pick rate.
matches, we're seeing one of these heroes come back, which if you've been watching any Overwatch League, is noticeable. Eventually, you jump into a match and they're playing Genji, and the Genji's popping off. He can actually find targets. The McCree will be popping off too, and it's really cool to watch some of these heroes come back, especially heroes like Reaper, where there's this conception that Reaper is a ladder hero in the lower ranks, and then after that, you just gotta
After
let go
season
of
2, he
him.
died.
Yeah.
Season
But
2,
we
season
are
3.
actually seeing Reaper come back, and he's getting used in a very interesting way. He is getting a lot of play in maps like Control. In Control, he went from a 1.3% pick rate to a 30% pick rate. And you would think
That's
Reaper
outrageous.
on Control? What are you
That's
talking
outrageous,
about?
by the
I
way.
play. Turns out that in Control, some of the players are picking a lot of heroes like Wrecking Ball, like Diva. They're playing some Winston. Sometimes some are Orisa and Roadhog as well. But if you leave the Reaper as a tank buster like he was supposed to be, and he's just constantly looking out after the tanks, I noticed a lot of Reapers would not even care about the backline. They would actually wait for the Hammond to come rolling in. And the second the Hammond tried to pile drive anything, that Reaper was on them right away, just firing at them, basically not allowing the tanks to live on the point. Like we said, Orisa is one of those heroes that likes sitting up on the point and sitting there, and the whole team is basically trying to keep her from having to move from that position, right?
I
But
think you can connect that with that Diva as well, because the Diva pick rate is one of the things where you're going to be considering running it with the Reaper, because when the Reaper goes in to do this business, you can just Matrix him, and then when he has the ultimate ready, you just charge up your Matrix and Matrix almost all of the Reaper ultimate, and then there's nothing left on the point. You just
Mhm.
go in and clear him out.
And he's become almost like a point gatekeeper. Like if you're a tank
Yeah.
and you want to stand on the point, you gotta go through the Reaper. That's actually sounds pretty cool.
Honestly, I feel like even though he seems to be the tank buster and people are picking Hammond into him, I feel like Hammond kind of is the only other thing that you can run against him to kind of CC him away. You know what I mean? Like you watch his cooldowns and then you kind of boop him around. Because other than that, there's not much other tanks that are going to find a whole lot of use against him in this
Yeah,
kind of a meta
the
system.
Orisa Roadhog actually struggle a little bit against the Reaper because again
Right.
he can dodge the halt hook combo just like Mei, and he can
Yep.
actually find ways into your bunker. Right, he can teleport behind it, and sometimes
Exactly.
he's sneaky now. Like he's hard to hear sometimes, so he can roll up on you pretty easy. And he has the tools to get into your bunker and then get out of it if things doesn't go his way. Right, like if something goes wrong, he can just shapeshift, or how do you call his thing? I've been playing Teamfight Tactics.
Wraithwalk.
Wraithwalk. There you go. You can Wraithwalk out of the
Now,
bunker.
what do you think is the big uptick with Genji Tracer? Because I'm looking at the pick rates here, and to me, it seems like even though their pick rates are increasing overall, it looks like each of the kind of iterations of different map types, they're not really that heavily favored. But like for hybrid, Genji kind of pops up a bit, and then like, is it assault and control kind of combined is where Tracer kind of pops up and shines? Because maybe Tracer's their answer to Reaper. Maybe Tracer's kind of their answer to like stall in assault maps. I don't know. That's kind of just what comes to mind as to why Tracer's kind of seeing an uptick. But
Yeah,
she didn't get her pulse bomb change yet, and so I feel like this number is just going to get higher.
I think that it really depends on the map. Like Tracer gets a lot of playing control just because that style of map
Hmm.
leads itself to the Tracer playstyle, right? You can it's very circular, so Tracer can always run laps around the
Right.
enemy team, and she can do like mini flanks constantly in these maps and not be at a disadvantage. I think that Genji has seen a lot of play in Assault. That's where he sees the most right now, from a 2.6 pick rate to a 21.8% pick rate on Assault. And with the Genji picks, and the Tracer picks, I think it's coming down to team skill and player skill. Do you have a
Yeah.
player that's a badass Genji? And then are you playing in a map where Genji is good, right? Genji is great in
Mm.
maps that have ton of verticality, that have like little nooks and crannies up in the top where he can like constantly be shooting at you and have angles and be able to find those dives on the heroes that you need. And if you look at players like Haxel, for example, from Vancouver Titans, he's just an insane Genji. Like you give
That
Genji
guy's
to
an
that
animal.
guy and he just makes things happen. And I love this that finally there's a spot in the meta where if you're just a beast at one of these DPS heroes, you can bring him out and force it on the enemy team. It's not necessarily that Genji became like the best hero out there, but now if you have the mechanics to pull him off, he's viable in some of these maps, and in Overwatch League, it's been shown.
The only two things that I would consider with Genji's pick rate increasing especially in Assault is like, for starters, they haven't issued the global increase of charge rates
Ultimates? Oh yeah,
for ultimates.
Ultimates reload really
And
fast in
Genji can
Overwatch
get
League
his
right now.
ult super
Yeah,
fast.
Nanoblade is
Super fast.
scary.
And not only Nanoblade scary, just Blade in general, even at this high level, like if you're going in with an ultimate into the point and you're just like, okay, let's get vision on somebody and go in, you make the fight a 5v6, maybe even a 4v6, that fight's over. And in Assault, that all you're doing is playing for time and cap time. And they can't really stall for very long, a 4v6, even after you use your blade, because you got so much extra time. And then you're also giving your team the ability to kind of not use their ultimates, if that makes sense, on point one, especially, and like go in and kind of bank up ults and then go into the bank and then with the bank into point two and just take it. So
Yeah,
maybe that's why Genji's there. And that's something that you're going to want to consider too, because Genji and Tracer, even after this change goes through, are still going to be able to get their ultimates a bit faster, and Tracer's gets better because they buffed it back to where it was on the pulse bomb.
and if you think about assault maps, a lot of them actually are nice for Genji. Genji likes
Hmm.
Anubis. Genji likes Hanamura. You can play him on Volskaya and all these maps where high ground is important because there's thin choke points. And if you can avoid those like small little condensed choke points that everyone's firing at and find alternative routes, you can sometimes break in much easier, right? And Genji can do that all the time. He has wall
Yeah.
climb on command and a dash that covers a huge distance. So
Hmm.
he's in a good spot for these maps.
Yeah.
Other maps that kind of come in mind are like Dorado or Gibraltar, maybe hybrid or escort maps.
Escort.
Yeah, but that again require a lot of verticality. Maps that don't have a lot of verticality, like for example, Busan in the temple. How do you call that map? The one with a giant bell in the middle of the map. It's a very
Mm,
flat. It's very flat overall.
I can look it up.
Yeah, I can't remember the name. Like that map is not great for him. But if you go to maybe City Center, that map is a little bit better, right? Like the Widow map, where you're outside and you have those huge buildings kind of like overlooking the entirety of the other
Sanctuary.
map. Sanctuary, thank you. Yeah, like
Sanctuary downtown and Mecha Base.
downtown, great map for Genji. Sanctuary, not as good, right? Like you don't have as many places to kind of like go around, and it's easier for
Yeah.
heroes that don't have verticality to move around those maps, so you don't have as much of an
Hmm.
edge.
Now let's go into talking about three heroes in particular, which one is going to be kind of in tandem with them, I think, for me, which is Mercy, and the other two are Hanzo and Widow. These two characters benefit a lot from Mercy boosting for starters, and again, in this meta where there's not really a whole lot of readjusting, these heroes can clean house when there's long sight lines, when there is a good flank and high, like a very high area that you can shoot from. And with regards to having Hanzo in place, if you have a way of locking people down with a halt combo or using it to zone people out of complete areas and funneling them into other ultimates, it's really good. Widowmaker, locking people down by knowing where their positions are, getting around the Orisa barriers to shoot the support heroes so they have no way of healing. these heroes can be extremely scary when they're put into the correct maps. And with that being said, if you're looking at Escort in particular, Widowmaker went from nearly 40% to almost 65%. That is that is the number 2 largest change in or sorry, not in change. It is number 5, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, number 5 largest change in overall pick rates and number 3 in the DPS category. And Hanzo is number 3 overall in that. So these heroes are just super valuable, and I think that in the places where these 2 heroes can benefit, Mercy can also benefit because it gets her a lot of freedom to bounce around the map. You get a lot of value from her ultimate for damage boosting your whole teams. And then furthermore, in maps where these guys are where Hanzo's good or Widowmaker's good, they kind of just complement almost anything, and sometimes even each other. Thinking of Junkertown in particular, and Dorado even, and Point Two especially.
Yeah, a lot of people were speculating Hanzo and Widow being good. And honestly, like, in a world where you can click heads again, where squishies are out and about, and you can actually get kills, they are actually really good.
Widow tilts me to no end, so I never want to see this hero. Like, it's just, ugh, I can't stand it, man.
No, I think that a lot of like cool things are happening because you're not going up against 3 tanks and 3 supports anymore. Like, it was so
Sure.
hard to get a kill in the previous meta because there were so many tools to keep somebody alive, and everybody had huge health pools, including Brigitte, which soon enough it's going to change. But that being said, some of these heroes like lost the appeal, like Genji and Widowmaker, because even though you could get those cool headshots and those cool dives,
Mm,
it didn't make much of a difference, right? Like, you
right.
just kind of slamming yourself against the wall. But now there's Zenyatas that are not covered in between 3 shields. Now you have at least 2 DPS players in the enemy team, and you have a
Mm,
maximum of 2 tanks. Sometimes only 1 shield because people are running only Orisa, and the Roadhog doesn't provide any protection against snipers, right?
yeah.
So finding angles on people is a real thing right now. And if you are a good Widowmaker, a good Hanzo, man, the opportunities are right there for you. Happy again from the charge was just destroying
That
people
guy's
with the
crazy
Widowmaker.
with
Man,
Widow.
like, talking about teams that have really improved because of this change, and like that is one of them. They're really popping off with the Mei and the Widowmaker, and you don't even have to run Hanzo and Widow at the same time. Like, sometimes you can,
Right.
right? You can do the double
Yeah.
sniper, but I've seen the Widowmaker getting run with a bunch of other people. Sometimes with Mei, sometimes even
Mm.
with a Genji, depending on the map. So yeah, it's an interesting point for DPS right now. There's definitely a lot to choose from.
Now, Andres, I think that we've covered a good chunk of this, but I wanted to hit one more topic, which is kind of Sigma for starters, and then second is within Sigma, kind of like what heroes are still in the same category but could see a bump with regards to balance changes. So for me, I didn't get a chance to sit down with you in PvP to talk about Sigma. But personally, I think that Sigma is really going to give teams a lot more consideration for not just for their tank lineups, but kind of just for building an entire strategy around. So I feel like that's going to adjust almost any consideration you have in general. And on top of that, I think that the Symmetra changes in particular, I feel like Symmetra is a big threat moving into kind of this next patch, and not a big threat overall. I think that Symmetra is going to have a lot more kind of specialty maps, if that makes sense. Like places where you're getting in those tight quarters and the beam changes kind of really start showcasing, and
Symmetra
then
is in a good spot right now. She's kind of
the
a
new
monster
teleporter.
in the PTR. The new
Yeah.
teleporter makes a big difference. The new beam changes actually make her damage very consistent. And surprisingly, she's actually really good against characters
I think
like
she's really
Sigma.
good.
Um,
Yeah.
if you've been playing Sigma and you've had a Symmetra on the enemy team, you know what I'm talking about. Because if she closed the gap on you, it's actually really hard to keep her damage off of you because your barrier tends to be not super reactive, and by the time you place it, she's already crossed it already. Especially if she's trying to keep on top of you, and you have no way of blocking her beam aside from your regular barrier, and you have
Yeah.
a very low amount of health, so she can actually melt you quite badly. And her turrets are super annoying for Sigma because he has a really slow fire rate. So committing to killing the turrets as
And
Sigma,
movement.
yeah, it's a huge deal for him. Like he wastes a lot of time doing that. So he's not a good at like the turret management. He's not good at defending himself from Symmetra himself, and he needs a lot of babysitting when that is happening. Plus, she
Yeah.
brings in like her huge shield, which allows her team to kind of push forward, and like I don't know,
Hmm.
she might be in an interesting spot come next patch.
There's another hero that's going to be pretty good next patch, in my opinion, and it's going to be Doomfist for the same reasons that you mentioned. Doomfist we found when I was playing with you, Andros, on PTR and some friends on a mixed couple sessions. We found that Doomfist kind of just gets to ignore Sigma's existence and kind of just delete him a lot. Because he gets to ignore the barrier, he kind of gets to come in and punch the snot out of this tank. He doesn't have the utility that Orisa has, which is blocking the secondary damage when you get punched. Um, he's really big hitbox for getting uppercut, and kind of that little knock in that you get from the seismic slam, and kind of displacing him a lot is really good. And then he synergizes pretty well with Sigma on top of that, because Sigma's got the knockdown with his rock. He's also got the symphony, which is what I've been calling his ultimate, where
I call
he
it
knocks
Symphony
people up.
too. I think everyone's just
Um,
calling it Symphony.
Symphony Circle, yeah, something like that. But like his big graviton circle knock up down thing is kind of like really interesting, because you can knock them up and then start channeling your what's it called, your meteor strike, and then by the time they get slammed down, you just get double whammed with the double slam. You can call it the Space Jam if you want, but that was coined with something else with Zarya. But it's kind of the same effect. So it's really interesting because it's kind of basically a different style of Zarya. I'm thinking like kind of a little bit more of a medium ground Zarya, because Sigma does have a lot of damage, you know.
Yeah, Sigma does a lot
Um,
of damage, and Zarya actually blends really well with him, I think.
hmm So, and also I think that Sigma kind of gives Lucio a little bit more of an appeal, because like when I was playing with you, I was playing with Shockmaster a couple games just on quick play and PTR. Sigma feels so good when you actually have that little bit of juice on your speed. Like, it's not something that you really want to ignore, but the healing is really, really nice too. So it's kind of that weird balancing act that you kind of do. And then obviously Reinhardt with the knockback changes actually feels pretty good. I was surprised to see how much that actually did make a big difference with his movement and his kind of his threatening posture when you get into a team fight, instead of just like, nah, move over here, please. you know.
Yeah, for the most part, I think it's been a good mix up. I'm looking forward to the new patch. It's already been really interesting to watch Overwatch League and kind of like see how things are evolving. Playing the PTR has also been a pleasure, not only because of the changes to consistency and 2-2 roll lock, but in general, it feels really good in each role. It seems like you have a lot of options, except for a very few heroes. Like I feel really bad for Reinhardt. He's still not getting a lot of play, and I think that that might be something that needs to be addressed in the future, even making him even more resistant to CC than he is right now. We'll see how they address that. But as far as the support roster goes, like everyone's getting some playtime. The DPS roster has a lot of options, and now that 2-2 is here, they make you actually necessary. So it doesn't matter if the meta is different. Like they need you there, so you better be bringing your A game with whatever it is that you're playing. And yeah, tons of options out there. So really cool
And
patch.
Andres, you can rest easy, because 2 weeks ago when we talked about the Moira changes, they did revert that, so that's gone now. You don't have to worry
Oh,
about
thank
her
God! Yeah,
fading out of
let's
everything.
mention that. That's the only change that they've reverted so far. I think they got a lot of backlash
Flack.
from it. Yeah, it's like, what are you guys doing? Because every other change that they've made is actually kind of increased the skill needed to play the game, and like honing more, like giving the agency to the players. Like if you are a good player, then you can succeed, right? And then this change was kind of like working backwards with it, like, oh, it doesn't matter if you get punished because you had bad positioning, or you mistimed your thing, or you were not paying attention to the McCree
I shouldn't
behind
have given you
you.
your soapbox again.
No, now that's back, so I'm happy about that. Mora is actually in a good spot in the meta as well. She goes well against Bunker.
I would like to see her get another adjustment, maybe not the same one, but you know what I mean. Like I would like to see something because a lot of other heroes are getting some love. I would like to see her a bit more, but I do tend to agree, Andres. I think that she is in a better spot just from locking the roles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's thank a few people. We got a few people in the chat that are doing some great stuff. We got Fudgy Fuzz gifting a tier 1 sub to some friends, as well as the Kua receiving that. So thank you guys in the live stream there, as well as Blazing Bob for donating some bits. I can't math right now. It's really late, but I think it's close to 500.
500?
I think it's 500 bits. So thank you for the bits, Bob, as well. And we're going to be closing the show here. So let's thank some people over at patreon.com/OmnicLab, the best way to support the show, getting coaching sessions, showing us that you really, really like the show each and every month. And those people are from July 12th through current, because I'm a little behind. We've got Caleb W. We also have Will, no last initial. We also have Nathan H. and May Z. Hot Juice. I talked with him in the Discord this week. This guy is great. Super funny. Really, really good. Met him. He subscribed to Patreon during game night because he was so happy that how much fun he was having. And we also have John L. and Nathan H. I think I already said your guys' name. There's a little bit of a glitch here on Patreon, but thank you guys so much for your support. It means the world to us, and seeing those 250s coming in is really, really exciting because that means another possibility of another coaching session for us, and we love doing those. So please jump in on the bandwagon there, as well as our one iTunes review that I have saved on my phone from the UK. From Mark is very cool. Says, great show. The hosts have an excellent and all-round knowledge. I could listen to them all day. Very relaxed. Yeah, everything they say is informative. I'm a better player due to this show, no question. I actually prefer the shows without the top 500 guests. Top 500 players are deep in the trending meta, while most of us are listening, rarely going on to be in the games where that applies. The host advice is more than enough for me, and the top 500 advice is over my head. Well, the good news is once you get to the point where that information feels a little bit more digestible to you, you can always go back and relearn some of those things.
Yeah,
and we have been doing
a
this
little bit
thing
for
where
everyone, but I'm glad you
try
can
to get a
find
little bit
something for yourself too.
Yeah. And so we really appreciate all of those things, but again, no harm, no foul. We love trying to do a little bit of everything, and we did try to kind of back off a bit on the top 500 stuff, just in general, kind of doing it a little bit of an even mix to get in that shotgun approach where we kind of hit the big listener base from all angles. But thank you guys so much for that. And also a huge shout out to Switch on all of this data that he was able to collect and push our, not just our way, because we're not like exclusive to this. This content is readily available to all of you guys. You can all pick it up and go check it out and make your own inferences and podcasts on this content. So it's been fantastic in that respect. I will be getting back on track with a couple other things for you guys on the YouTube page. So if you're wondering where are my gosh dang YouTube articles, they're coming up, and then hopefully I'll get some thumbnails to you guys too. And guys, enjoy August. This is the time of transition where some of the best Overwatch is going to be starting up pretty soon for you guys on the live servers in the beta. So go out there, enjoy PTR if you can. If you're on consoles, be excited. You have beta, you can go test it during beta. You don't have to get locked out before it hits live, so enjoy that too. Andres, that's going to do it for the show. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
If you want to find me, you can do so on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
You can find me on Twitter, the same tag for Instagram and for Twitter, called Not Rob. If you want to see me online, you can add me at Not Rob May on Twitch and watch some of the streams there. Hopefully, with this new internet, it'll actually be better, and I can do some streams and actually not have terrible ping, so we can go hang out, especially you Aussies out there on the good time zone that you can watch in the weird time slots that I have. We'll see you guys next week, and remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We'll see you then.